Hi guys, it is Lindsay here from the Glasgow Football Tour and this is our channel, Football Makes Glasgow. In today's video we discuss Jimmy's illustrious career and explore his infectious character, admired by the likes of John Greig, Puskas and many more. Jimmy was affectionately known as the Lord of the Wing. The wee man from View Park wasn't different class, he was world class.
The best game would probably be Red Star for me. Red Star. I was at that game.
Were you?
I was at that game.
I was at that game as well.
Yeah.
I was at that game. It's when you're lucky enough to see these players playing, and you see something like the telepathic understanding between Johnstone and Bobby Murdoch. It was just incredible to watch. But Johnstone, that was the night where Jockstein had said to him that Celtic won by 3 or 4 goals. He didn't have to fly to Belgrade, and of course he ran riot. So I would have to say that's probably ability-wise, that's the best I've seen him playing.
Yeah.
And the other games you're talking about, the header at Ibrox to win the league. He had an incredible record against Rangers, Jimmy Johnstone. I think he scored 10 goals in total, maybe more actually. So he was always scoring goals against Rangers. And the game you're talking about, Dundee United, is probably the 7-2 game. And they say that he was so good that night, he actually got off the park and dribbled round somebody, the ball boy behind the goals and all that sorts of stuff. So yeah, I mean that's only 3. You could pick another, how many, Lindsay,
The 7-2 game fascinates me and I find it quite funny because he never scored. And I think it was one of the match reports and I read it at Hampden one time. It said he dribbled past 6 and Willie Wallace, his own player, in this night, and he never scored. 7 goals and he never scored. I think he had a shot for 50 yards and hit the post.
It wasn't unusual for him to
No,
still
it
players, you know.
thought
He just wanted to beat everybody.
Just thought that was,
That's a crack
that
story.
was brilliant.
I like that.
There we go. But
Kenny,
The 2 each game, I like watching that. The goals on the TV, on the video or whatever, we see it. I think the second goal's a classic. But apart
Lift
from the
peg,
goal,
Kenny, wasn't
sorry,
it? Is it the lift peg one?
aye, and more so the reaction to the Celtic players in the background. If you look at Tommy Game on the background of that film, how delighted he is for that. But a draw and you win the lead at that. But I think there's a Scotland game actually sticks in my mind that Jimmy had at Hampden. Was it 2-0? And I'm sure Jimmy was outstanding in that game.
That's the one right behind you, Kenny, on the wall there.
what Kenny is referring to is a very famous 2-0 victory over the Old Enemy, played here at Hampden Park in 1974. It was a home international championship match which followed the boating incident. Scotland had just beaten Wales 2-0 and upon returning to their hotel in Largs, manager Willie Ormond let the boys have a night off. In the early hours, wee Jinky decided to commandeer a rowing boat. The only problem was, the wee man had no oars, so he began drifting out to sea. Not ideal before a big game against England. His teammates, bless them, tried to help him out, but their boat had a hole in it, so they had to frantically work their way back to shore as well, leaving Johnstone having to be rescued by the Coast Guard, which made headline news the next morning. Scotland absolutely dominated England, and wee Jinky played his part. So at the end of the game, when the final whistle blew, he stuck the 2 fingers up to the press box and joined his teammates for a lap of honour round the pitch at Hampden Park. Jinky had a lot of good friends in football, but to go one better, he also had some really great admirers.
Real Madrid, and you mentioned Puskas. We know a gentleman named Rod Stewart.
Right.
We know Roddy.
Oh, Roddy, I've heard of the Roddy Stewart, I was like,
who does lots of stuff for Football Memories. And Roddy used to travel all over the world, and he worked with British Airways. And probably in the 90s sometimes he was in Melbourne, he was in Australia. And at that time, Roddy had done a lot of work for the Celtic View and various things. And when he got to Melbourne, he'd heard that Puskas was a manager of one of the clubs in Melbourne City.
Puskas didn't play that night though, Robert. He was a guest. He was a guest there, and that's where the photograph came in.
That's right. But Puskas was one of the greatest players in the world, and his generation. So that time when Roddy was in Melbourne, He found out where Puskas was. He was a manager at a club. He went along to the ground. He got introduced, met him, and Puskas doesn't speak English, or much English, and Roddy doesn't speak much Hungarian, but their common bond was football. And as soon as Roddy mentioned Jimmy Johnstone, Puskas stood on the turf on the ground and he did the Jinky weave.
Oh,
that's what Puskas did when he mentioned the name Jimmy Johnstone.
So
I know you're really interested in the Football Makes Glasgow. I know that's a
Yes.
theme you've got, and I know the good work that you're doing and the good work you will do. But Jim's talking there about the players. We shouldn't forget that Jinky also had a friend in Willie Henderson, who again you've probably met. I mean, you hear all this rivalry in Celtic and Rangers, but you also got to remember off the park, a lot of these guys were friends, they were pals. And I know from you telling me, Jim, that Willie Henderson's come into the academy here.
He's been here. He's a patron.
He's a patron.
He's a patron.
Yeah, so I mean that kind of recognising players, not just the Steffos and the Puskases and the Matthews and that, but also the Scottish players.
Yeah.
Every team in Scotland had good players, Lindsay. Every team had good players that you would go and want to watch.
Willie Henderson's a genius. The loveliest, nicest man you could ever meet. We'd be sat in here one summer night. All of a sudden 4 hours is gone. And he's talking. And he would tell us the stories. He loved Jimmy Johnstone. And Jimmy Johnstone loved him. So special connection between these two men who had great rivalry on the park. Great rivalry between the two sides of the city. But when these two were together, they were special. Even in front of people, whatever. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the great Willie Henderson, actually, we sat here and he told us the story how he played for the Great 11. Sir Stanley Matthews,
World 11.
the World 11, they phoned him up and he was doing a playing, and it was great. It was magnificent playing with all these great players. He says, but Jinky, Jimmy was special. Jimmy was world class. Now for that to come from your greatest rivals across the city for one of the players, is that not a compliment? Sandy Jardine used to come and visit him. John Greig would come and visit him. Ali McCoy would come and visit Jimmy. There's lots and lots of connections between Jimmy and the Rangers supporters as well. He's respected by all, but Willie Henderson, well done for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Great friends and a great player. World class player.
Well, that's
Was
what
Willie
Henderson
Henderson.
said about Jinky.
Well, that's what it says in his jersey there. He's wrote it up in that jersey up there.
Yeah,
To my greatest friend and world class player.
Jimmy said that when he first went into the Scotland squad, the Scotland camp, it's a big thing for any footballer, to get into this new environment. All these big international stars like Dennis Law, wasn't much bigger than Dennis Law at the time, and Dennis Law was the one that made him feel comfortable. Dennis Law was so down to earth, and he just made Jimmy really comfortable, and which says a lot for Dennis Law. And the other name that I've heard a lot about, and he came from Glasgow. I know you're interested in all the Glasgow stuff, Lindsay. The other player that made him really feel comfortable was Eddie McCready. Eddie McCready I think he played with Drumchapel Amateurs. I think he did. Obviously played with Chelsea, but he was another one that Jimmy talked very highly of. Dennis Law and Eddie McCready.
The one I read, so obviously we've touched on, he didn't like flying. He famously said, it's not the flying I'm scared of, it's the crashing I'm scared of. But I heard that Jockstein always used to sit him next to Willie O'Neill, I think it was, because he was sort of the patter merchant, and he was like just sitting next to him. He'll be
Good pals. They were very good friends, and a great guy was Willie O'Neill as well. Used to go out and visit Jimmy all the time.
You mentioned there about the fear of flying.
Yeah.
It used to be said that when Jockstein was doing his team talks before a big European game, so the Celtic players are like us, they're sitting in maybe wherever they are, Largs or Celtic Park, whatever, and they're sitting and Jock's up there at the boards and doing his thing, and he's telling the Celtic players about who they're playing against, some of these big clubs and players in Europe. And Jimmy'd be sitting there kind of kicking stains and don't know where his mind was away to. Anyway, when Jock finished his talk about what was going to happen, he would always say to the players, has Andy got any questions? Now when Jockstein says, has Andy got any questions, it meant, that's the end of this, we're finished guys, we're away. And apparently Jimmy would always put his hand up or look at him or say something. And you would think it would be about tactics or playing against somebody or all that. And he used to say, boss, how long does it take the plane?
How long's the flight?
How long's the flight? That's how he used to end it.
We spoke that much about wee Jimmy that we actually forgot to mention Lisbon. The Inter Milan players that he played in 1967 have a very special nickname for him. It is Il Popolino, which means the little mouse. This concludes part 3 of our Jimmy Johnstone series. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe below. Stay tuned to discover the link between wee Jinky and Diego Armando Maradona.